Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with News Source's Ladies' Night edition. Now, the Kenyan High Court has ruled that Uhuru Kenyatta's cabinet is unconstitutional, saying it fails to meet the two-thirds gender requirement. Kenya has failed in several attempts to regularize and comply with laws requiring that every public appointment reflects a gender balance. It is yet to be seen if President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy will reconstitute their cabinet to reflect the letter of the Constitution. Right, so High Court rules that this is unconstitutional. A bit confusing because, you know, we've really not been making headway with this two-thirds, framework of implementation. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we failed twice, in Parliament to push this legislation through, and there's absolutely no goodwill for it to happen. I'm wondering how years after 2013 and almost into our next election, this is when we're discovering that this is unconstitutional.
Right.
It has been from the very beginning. And remember, we talked about wipers saying that have a 50-50. I'm beginning to think a 50-50 is just the way to go, especially in cabinet where you can choose your cabinet secretaries, your PSs. You have the leeway to just go straight down the line and have half male, half female.
Some would argue that let's not head for let's just take one step at a time. Now that we are coming from a very patriarchal, background.
But the two-thirds seems to be something that people just can't grasp.
And we have not grasped it yet.
Yes.
So just make it 50-50. I'm with Julie on that. The irony is this coming from a judiciary that is completely just ignoring the same law themselves. Willingly. And then the question is, so now you have ruled that, and then?
So then what next?
But does it take a case for people to realize that
they have
went against a particular rule in the Constitution? But the question of gender balance in this country, I think we have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go. It's constitutional.
Even in Parliament, it failed twice. Female members of Parliament took men for dinner so that they can pass this. Yeah, they were on a charm offense, but they still failed. So what else is there to do?
There's this thing, basically, that Aski has pointed out. It's in Parliament, it's in the judiciary, it's in the cabinet, it's in the political parties. None of you are following this constitutional rule, and none of you want to turn it into a proper law that forces you to follow it. So then, I'm back to being helpless. I'm like, okay, so now you have told me, his cabinet is unconstitutional. So is Parliament. So is the judiciary.
So are you.
So are you. I mean, what have you told us? And I would love to think that it would, the president and his deputy would reconstitute to now try and meet this obligation. But I don't think that they've found
because we have no framework actually.
Yeah.
Yet
but it should just be a matter of goodwill for them. Do they have to be forced by a law to realize that women can offer good leadership? They can do it on their own, really.
Maybe not, but they can get away with it.
Yeah, that too, Sharon.
All right, there's a very interesting story that's coming up next. Drama unfolded in an Eldoret court when the wife of veteran politician Jackson Kibor wailed loudly during the hearing of their divorce case. Josephine cried loudly, accusing her husband of being insensitive. Kibor, a once powerful Kanu bigwig, filed for divorce after 51 years of marriage to his second wife, Josephine Kibor. The prominent businessman and farmer filed for divorce last month, and he accused his wife of desertion, cruelty, and interfering with his ownership of 800 acres in Kipkabus in Uasin Gishu County.
I think I still can't get over the 51 years.
Yeah, still there. I'm still
Listen, you're there for 51 years and you notice now that she's cruel.
Like they're not
you can
51
take it.
years old.
Maybe you just can't take it anymore. You just reached the breaking point, especially since the 800 acres of land at stake.
But they're married. I mean, isn't it a thing that when you're married, you pretty much co-own these things?
It should be, but as we're seeing...
You know what she's done? She's done a caveat, so he cannot go ahead and sell off. And the land he's trying to sell off, I believe she lives on it.
Right.
So what he's trying to say is, no, actually she doesn't live on it, and she's a cruel person, and she deserted my, my marital home and etc. and etc. And basically all this is about him trying to sell off this land. You have to look at it from her perspective. She has children to think of, and probably they're adult children right now. This is their inheritance. So if he divorces her, her kids might be affected. I would wail too after 51 years with somebody, and I have children to think about.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I would wail too.
How much life are you left with?
I could wail right now.
No, but
Enjoy these 800 acres after this.
Whether or not they're married, Betty, there's matrimonial property, which, like Sharon said, they own together. So whether they're divorced or not, the children will still inherit. So it's I think this gentleman just got fed up with his wife on one level.
Wife of 51 years, Julie.
It is possible, but it's curious that he's like an elderly gentleman from upcountry and who has just decided he's going to get divorced in a very legal, lawful kind of scenario. So maybe there's more to this than meets the eye beyond the 51 years. Like you said, you're looking at me like...
And of course, you know, with due respect, any relationship between two people, you cannot understand the dynamics and whatnot.
Right.
But I mean, just right from the outset, I'm thinking 51 years of, you know, a union. I don't know if I would want to start litigating on such issues as you know.
As late as that,
ownership.
but then, Sharon, you know, you don't forget the 800 acres. This must be the motivation.
That's the
I mean, I'll just say that we
especially.
should not know if there's somewhere watching us, they're like, you all don't know what's going on over here. You know?
I don't speak on
But
our
it's
marriage.
just
It's an
51
interesting
years.
51 years is long. 51 years, honestly, is a very long time. But again, they say a woman takes time before they show their true colors. So maybe, just maybe, she decided after 51 years, now you kind of know the little devil in me. But on a lighter note.
All right, let's move on to this final story of the night. And should the age of consent have to be reduced from 18 to 16 years? Well, amendments to the Sexual Offences Act are in the works. If the amendments are passed, teenagers aged 16 years will be able to have consensual sex. Speaking to the press, Federation of Women Lawyers chairperson Josephine Mongare said that the amendment seeks to protect the boy child who has become the unintended victim of sexual offences, of the Sexual Offences Act, rather. And of course, when this story came out, there was a lot of uproar, there was a lot of agitation against it.
Correct.
And the main question is, where is this coming from?
It's coming from the fact, first of all, that rape is defined as penetration with a genital organ. So your first instinct as a judge would be to say that a boy raped a girl.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is 16-year-olds are having sex with each other at the same age. And only the boys get penalized for defilement because they've penetrated with them, etc., a minor. So this is trying to level the playing field to the point that if you're both 16, then none of you, and you both consented, none of you assaulted the other. Because the boy child is getting caught up in the system whereby he's having sex with his peers, but the law is saying that he's a defiler.
Okay, that makes sense. The law also says that legally you can get married at 18 years.
Right.
So then, and then if we make this consensual at 16 years, I think there's a bit
I
of...
think there's a difference between, it's just the age of consent, the age at which you can be considered to have agreed to have sex with somebody. I don't know if they want to change it to you can now get married at 16.
Right. Because if you can have sex at 16, surely you
can as well get married.
I think we're missing the point here.
Right.
This law came up because you had a situation where parents of a girl who had sex, maybe she got pregnant, reject the boyfriend and then take the boyfriend to the cops and then he's charged with defilement.
Right.
And that's where
so
this
I'm
came up.
told we're out of time, so like your final comments.
So my problem with this change is that it does not empower the girl to speak up for her boyfriend.
Right.
That's my main issue with it.
But we must never forget the boy child as well, because for years and years we've been harping on about the girl child, and I think the boy child in some instances is actually suffering, Betty.
Right. I don't know if you have some
And tonight as we wrap up, we asked you whether Amelia Odhiambo is out of order or was out of order in her utterances against the president. This we asked on our tweetable question. Let's just take a look at some of the responses we got. Sagashina says, I think she went beyond the lines. There is a better way to disagree. Gorma Gufuli says, Uhuru Ruto abused Raila on a daily basis. So this is nothing different. Alfred Mutethia says it was too personal. The presidency should be respected. Alex Mulwa Musembi says, yes, she was out of order and this will cost us as CORD fraternity, but the media should not have covered this, all right? We are coming under fire for covering that. And I'll take a look at the final response here. John Oraro says, under whose order were the police making legislators to remove shoes? She was not out of order. These are some of the responses you gave us tonight. Thank you very much for engaging with us here on news sources as we discuss some of the stories that are shaping the political space in the country, and of course some that are not political. And I think we are going to wrap up at this point, Sharon.
Right. And that's where we wind up. Many thanks for your views. Many thanks for watching tonight and for engaging with us every Wednesday. And this is actually our last show for the year, for the Ladies' Night edition. Of course, the last news sources is tomorrow. So many thanks for keeping with us the entire time and for embracing this idea of the all-female panel. It's been awesome. And have a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year. Good night. Thank you.